pregnant wife found out the billionaire had a mistress she filed for divorce without a word. A sharp gasp in the middle of a quiet morning changed Veronica Halston's life forever. The photo on her phone was undeniable. Her millionaire husband, James Halston, smiling alongside a mysterious woman. Rumors swirled for months, but she never believed them until now. Veronica was pregnant, holding the promise of a growing family. Yet in that stark moment, her hopes and dreams cracked like delicate porcelain. She needed answers. She needed truth. Shock turned to resolve. She would not let betrayal swallow her whole. What happened behind her back was only the beginning of the unraveling secrets that would rock their world. Veronica Halston was never the type to snoop through her husband's phone, rummage through pockets, or question late-night business meetings. She believed in trust, in loyalty, and in love that conquered any obstacle. Raised in a modest home just outside of Chicago, she was taught to see the best in people. And for years, she found no reason to suspect James Halston of anything nefarious. After all, he was the charming entrepreneur who swept her off her feet with candlelit dinners, spontaneous weekend getaways, and a promise of unconditional devotion. James was a millionaire with a business empire built around high-end real estate investments. He was renowned for his keen eye in spotting undervalued properties and transforming them into luxury complexes. His fortune grew quickly, and so did their circle of friends. Veronica, on her part, felt somewhat out of place in the glitzy, polished crowd James frequently entertained. She was more comfortable in a pair of jeans than a designer dress, and she never quite understood the allure of gala events. Still, love had a way of bridging differences. She found herself adapting, always with a soft smile and supportive heart. For months, strange gossip threads had reached Veronica's ears from multiple angles. Friends dropping cryptic hints, hushed conversations that abruptly ceased as she entered the room, sideways glances at the country club. She confronted James once, lightly, "Is there anything going on I should know about?" He laughed it off, his bright blue eyes shining with apparent affection. "My darling, you are imagining things," he insisted, wrapping his arms around her. And for a moment, she believed him, letting that gentle warmth drown out her doubts. But then came the phone call at 2 in the morning. Veronica, nearing the end of her first trimester, was jolted awake by the ring. James was out of bed instantly, pressing his phone to his ear. She caught fragments. "I told you not to call me now, and I'll handle it later. And don't worry, I'll be there." The tension in his voice sent chills up her spine. When she asked who it was, he said it was a colleague from Hong Kong, something about a time zone mix-up regarding an urgent deal. She nodded and forced a reassuring smile, not wanting to seem paranoid. Her doctor had told her to avoid stress for the sake of the baby, so she tried to rationalize every unsettling sign. Exhaustion from pregnancy was real, and nerves often played tricks. Yet the nagging suspicion grew like a cold knot in her stomach. It did not help that James spent more and more time away from home, citing pressing business expansions. One afternoon, Veronica ran into an old friend, Stephanie Winston. Stephanie was a well-connected PR consultant, known for her no-nonsense approach. At a cafe near Lakeshore Drive, Stephanie leaned in and whispered, "I've heard some disturbing rumors about James, and I feel like you should know." Veronica blinked, her heart skidding. "I don't want to alarm you," Stephanie continued, "but people are saying James has been seen around town with someone else, a woman named Isabella Hughes." Veronica's throat went dry. She managed to stammer, "Thank you, Steph. I'll look into it." Armed with that name, Isabella Hughes, Veronica debated her next move. Should she confront James directly? Should she investigate discreetly? She opened her laptop, typed the name into a search engine, and discovered a sophisticated woman with dark, cascading hair, perched in glossy magazine photos at charity galas. Isabella was known for her philanthropic events, especially at the exclusive Pinewood Country Club. Veronica felt her pulse quicken. James was a member of Pinewood. The pieces clicked uncomfortably into place, yet she had no solid proof. Veronica attempted to quell the swirling thoughts. Maybe James was simply partnering with Isabella on a business venture or a philanthropic cause. She tried to remain calm, telling herself it could be a misunderstanding, but with each passing day, his absences multiplied. Late nights turned into overnight stays. When she confronted him, James would brush it off as last-minute flights to out-of-state properties. The final straw came when she returned home one morning from a prenatal checkup to find a text message on her phone, an anonymous sender. The content was direct, 2 attached photos of James. In one, he was walking along a private beach, arm draped around Isabella's waist. In another, they were locked in an intimate kiss outside a high-rise building. Veronica froze, tears burning behind her eyes. The hush of the empty living room felt deafening, as if the walls themselves were screaming the truth she had avoided for too long. She closed her eyes and gently placed her hand over her growing belly. A wave of nausea and heartbreak collided. The man she loved, who she believed loved her back, was sharing his life and bed with another woman. She had wanted to protect her child from such betrayal, hoping James would be honest. But honesty was nowhere to be found. With trembling fingers she pressed the save button on the text message, a haunting record of her shattered faith. In that moment, her world cracked, and she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Veronica reeled from the initial shock of James's betrayal. In desperation, she confided in her closest friend, Lisa Davenport. Tearfully, she shared the damning photos an anonymous sender had forwarded James embracing a mysterious woman named Isabella. Already exhausted by pregnancy, Veronica struggled to process the onslaught of heartbreak and outrage. Lisa urged her to protect herself and the baby, emphasizing that James's affair might be just one part of a web of deceit. Determined to uncover the truth before confronting him, Veronica delved into financial records hidden in James's study. She found suspicious bank transfers and hotel receipts for trips he claimed were business conferences. Every discovery confirmed her worst fears. James was living a double life. But the final blow landed one afternoon when she came home from a prenatal checkup. On her phone were fresh images, James strolling along a private beach with Isabella, locked in an intimate embrace. The anguish was suffocating. She felt her once stable world implode. Yet amid tears, Veronica quietly saved the evidence, resolved to confront the lies on her own terms. No longer could she ignore the truth. Her millionaire husband was entangled in an affair, and she, pregnant with their child, had no choice but to face the unraveling of her marriage. At precisely 9 the next morning, Veronica found herself in an elegant, glass-walled office overlooking the Chicago River. The receptionist offered her a seat and a glass of water. Veronica's heart pounded like a drum roll. She had never imagined she'd be consulting a divorce attorney. She tried to console herself with the thought that this was merely an information-gathering session, but deep inside, she sensed she was crossing a threshold. Marcia Holland, a poised woman with sharp brown eyes and impeccably tailored attire, stepped out to greet her. "Miss S. Halston, I'm Marcia Holland," she said, extending a hand. Veronica offered a polite smile and followed her into a private conference room. The floor-to-ceiling windows gave a stunning view of the city, yet Veronica barely noticed. Her mind was too cluttered with dread and heartbreak. Once they were seated, Marcia began gently, "I understand this is likely a difficult time for you. Let's start with what's on your mind." Veronica took a deep breath, recalling the swirl of events that led her here. She described how she discovered James's affair, the financial discrepancies, and the phone calls that always seemed to arrive at odd hours. Marcia listened intently, jotting down notes. When Veronica paused, Marcia spoke, her tone calm but purposeful. "You've done the right thing by collecting evidence. In cases of infidelity, especially when substantial assets are involved, it's crucial to document everything. This includes texts, emails, and financial records that suggest support or gifts for the alleged mistress." Veronica nodded, recalling the stack of receipts and screenshots she had. "I have all of that," she said softly. Marcia continued, "I also recommend that we involve a forensic accountant if necessary to trace any funds that might have been diverted or hidden. But before we get to that stage, tell me what your goals are. Are you looking to confront him and attempt reconciliation, or are you leaning toward divorce?" A lump formed in Veronica's throat. She thought about the nights when James whispered sweet nothings in her ear, and the times he kissed her belly, excited about fatherhood. Could all of that have been a lie? I'm not sure," she admitted. "I came here to understand my legal standing, especially because I'm pregnant." Marcia nodded sympathetically. "Understood. If you decide to file for divorce, rest assured that Illinois law will consider the best interests of the child, including custody arrangements and financial support. Your pregnancy does not weaken your position. In fact, it underscores the importance of securing a stable environment for both you and your baby." A heavy feeling settled on Veronica. She thanked Marcia for her time and promised to stay in touch. As she left the office, her phone buzzed. It was a message from James. "Dinner at the Palmer House tonight with potential investors. Don't wait up." She felt a cold wave rush through her. Another night alone, pregnant and wondering where he truly was. Instead of going home, Veronica decided to meet Lisa Davenport again. The two of them strolled around Millennium Park, the iconic bean-shaped sculpture reflecting a distorted version of their weary faces. Lisa kept glancing at her friend, worried. "So, what did the lawyer say?" Lisa asked, hooking her arm through Veronica's. Veronica relayed everything, explaining that she still felt too shaken to make a final decision. "You're strong, Veronica." "Stronger than you think," Lisa said, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "Just remember, whatever choice you make, I'm here. And you're not alone." Those words echoed in Veronica's mind. She was carrying a child, and that child deserved stability and love. Would that be possible if she stayed with James, a man who seemed to have one foot firmly planted in another life? That evening, her inner turmoil reached a crescendo. She wandered the house alone. The emptiness seemed to loom, turning every shadow into a taunting reminder of James's absence. At around 11, she heard the front door open. She waited in the living room, lights dimmed. James walked in. Removing his coat and loosening his tie, he paused when he saw her awake. "You should be in bed," he remarked, placing his laptop bag on a chair. Without a word, Veronica tapped her phone screen, revealing the photos that had been anonymously sent. James and Isabella at the beach, locked in an embrace. James's face went pale. "Wah, where did you get that?" he stammered. Veronica felt her voice shake as she asked, "Who is she, James?" He attempted to bluster. "It's not what it looks like. She's a friend." That picture was taken out of context, but the weight of the evidence was too strong. Veronica felt her tears begin to flow. "Out of context?" she repeated. "Is the kiss out of context too? Or the trips, the hotel receipts, the secret bank transfers?" She stood, the hurt radiating from her. "You lied to me." James's face hardened. "It's complicated, Veronica. You don't understand the pressures I'm under. Isabella and we've been working on something and it got personal." His admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. He tried to reach for her, but she recoiled. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice trembled with heartbreak, but also with an undercurrent of steely resolve. She turned and headed upstairs, leaving James alone. In their bedroom, she silently sobbed, pressing a pillow to her mouth to stifle the sound. She realized that trust, once shattered, was nearly impossible to mend. And now, the future she had envisioned for her family dissolved into uncertainty, replaced by a single question that echoed in her mind: what now? The next morning dawned with a sense of bitter finality. Veronica's face felt swollen from the night of crying. She had barely slept. Some time before sunrise, James had slipped into the guest room. They were both under the same roof, yet felt 1,000 miles apart. As she changed into comfortable maternity clothes, her phone pinged with a message from Lisa. "I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything." Before Veronica could respond, she heard James shuffle down the hallway. He paused outside the bedroom door, perhaps debating whether to come in. Finally, he knocked softly. "Veronica, can we talk?" he asked in a subdued tone. She took a breath and opened the door, arms folded protectively over her belly. He looked disheveled, a stark contrast to his usual polished appearance. His eyes carried a mix of guilt and frustration. I need you to understand," he began, voice faltering. "Isabella and I, yes, it got physical, but it was never about replacing you. Our marriage, our child, they matter to me." Veronica's anger flickered. "Is that supposed to make me feel better? You humiliated me, James, and you put our baby's future at risk. How could you do that?" Her voice cracked, tears threatening to surface again. James glanced at the ring on her finger, as if searching for some anchor in the storm. "I'm sorry," he said softly, stepping closer. "I got caught up in business deals, in traveling, in trying to maintain this image of success. Isabella was there, beautiful, seductive. She understood my world in ways I thought you never could." He paused, realization setting in that his words were likely hurting her even more. "I'm not excusing it," he quickly added. "I'm just trying to explain." Veronica fought the urge to slam the door in his face. She managed a brittle laugh. "Explain what? That you found someone who speaks your language of money and power? That you couldn't bother to remain faithful to the woman carrying your child?" She felt a tear slip down her cheek. "I loved you, James. I believed in us." He sighed, raking a hand through his hair. "You still don't understand. There's more at stake here than just an affair." His voice took on a strained quality. "I made some questionable investments. Isabella was helping me salvage them. She's well connected in ways that could make or break my empire. I let it go too far, but the financial side is also very real. Without her, I risk losing everything." Veronica's chest tightened. She thought about the lavish lifestyle James maintained, the luxury cars, the penthouse parties, the philanthropic galas. Was it all built on precarious deals? "So you sacrificed our marriage to keep your empire afloat?" she asked, voice trembling with disbelief. His eyes flickered with shame. "I know how it sounds. But, believe me, I never intended to hurt you like this. I'm trying to fix the situation. Give me some time. I'll prove that our family is still my priority." She wanted to scream at him, to throw every object in the room. Instead, she wrapped her arms around herself, searching for composure. "I can't just forget what you did, and I can't risk my child's future on your business gambles." They stood there, the silence heavy with things unsaid. Finally, James whispered, "I understand if you need space. I'll respect any decision you make, but please, at least consider giving me a chance to make this right." With that, he turned and left, leaving Veronica torn between anger, sadness, and a faint thread of hope she was too afraid to acknowledge. In the days that followed, James tried to prove his commitment by reducing his travel, even missing high-profile meetings to attend Veronica's prenatal appointments. He shut down late-night calls from Isabella, and he insisted he was prepared to break all personal ties with her. Once his financial crisis was stabilized, Veronica watched his efforts with a guarded heart, uncertain whether to trust him again. Meanwhile, Isabella Hughes became a looming presence in Veronica's mind. She wanted to despise the woman, to blame her for everything, yet a small voice told her James was just as responsible. She wondered if Isabella even knew the full extent of James's life, his pregnant wife. The dream of a growing family. Did it matter? An affair was an affair, no matter the excuses. During one particularly restless night, Veronica found herself scrolling through social media. She stumbled upon a recent photo posted by a socialite friend of James. In the picture, Isabella glowed, dressed in a stunning black gown, sipping champagne at what appeared to be a charity fundraiser. James was nowhere in the frame, but Veronica's stomach twisted in knots. She realized that this woman wasn't going away easily. If James truly wanted out of that entanglement, it could come at a colossal price. Caught in a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, Veronica decided to continue with her own plans. She would meet with Marcia again, exploring every legal avenue, including the possibility of filing for divorce. She scheduled an appointment for the following week, determined not to let James's current attempts overshadow her need for security. She was pregnant, vulnerable, and, most of all, desperate to forge a safe path forward for herself and her child, whether James was part of that future or not. The next few days were a delicate dance between Veronica and James, like strangers living under the same roof, bound by a fragile truce. He tried to engage her in everyday conversations, asking about her appointments, the baby's progress, or if she needed anything from the grocery store. Veronica replied politely, but her voice lacked warmth. The air between them was tense, filled with unspoken accusations and regrets. Late one evening, as she lay in bed struggling to sleep, Veronica received another anonymous text. "He's still meeting her. Don't be fooled." Attached was a grainy photo of James sitting in what looked like a dimly lit cafe, Isabella across from him. Rage and heartbreak sprang forth anew. She didn't wake James. Instead, she lay there, tears trailing down her cheeks, trying to figure out who was feeding her these messages and why. The next morning, she confronted him calmly, showing him the photo. "Explain this," she demanded, voice tight. James, clearly caught off guard, stared at the image. "It's not what you think. I met her to finalize an exit from our arrangement," he began. "I told you I needed to settle some financial obligations with her. That's all this was." Veronica rolled her eyes, finding it hard to trust a single word. "And I'm just supposed to believe you? That you secretly met her in some hidden cafe just to talk business?" Her tone dripped with skepticism. James rubbed his temples. "I know how it looks, but you have to trust me. This is the last time." She pursed her lips, turning away. The cycle of suspicion and half-pleas was emotionally draining. A part of her wanted to pack her bags and leave. Another part still clung to the memories of the man she once loved unconditionally. She walked out of the room, deciding she needed fresh air. That afternoon, Veronica drove to a small park on the edge of Lake Michigan. A crisp breeze toyed with her hair as she strolled along the shoreline. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries echoing in the vast space. She found a secluded bench and took a seat, exhaling the tension that knotted her shoulders. She thought about the life she wanted for her child, stable, nurturing, free from drama. Could she rebuild that life with James, or was it too late? She recalled the gentle way he used to cradle her face, promising her the world. Now those promises seemed hollow. A wave of sadness swelled inside her, so profound that she felt tears burning at the corners of her eyes. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Lisa Davenport. She answered, voice shaking. "Hey, Lisa," she said, fighting to keep her emotions in check. Lisa's tone was urgent. "Veronica, you need to see something. You know that journalist, Rafael Batista? He just posted an expose on James's financial dealings, and potential scandal with Isabella Hughes. Veronica's heart thundered. She swiftly opened social media and found the article. Titled "Millionaire in Distress, the Halston-Hughes Affair and Hidden Debts," it detailed James's precarious investments, allegations of funneling money to Isabella, and rumors of a pending lawsuit from disgruntled business partners. Veronica's stomach clenched. It was worse than she'd imagined. James's entire empire seemed on the brink of collapse. The expos also mentioned Veronica's pregnancy, though not by name, implying that James's family life might be in jeopardy. She felt violated, as if her private struggle was now on a public stage. Angry tears welled up as she read the sensational details: alleged hush money, offshore accounts, and hush-hush dinners. Whether all of it was true or not, the media had a knack for spinning partial truths into a full-blown spectacle. She ended the call with Lisa, promising to keep her updated. Thoughts swirled in her head like a storm. She worried about the repercussions this might have on her baby. Stress was the last thing she needed, but how could she avoid it now? It was only a matter of time before paparazzi lurked around every corner, sniffing for a juicy headline. Returning home, she found James pacing the living room, phone in hand, a clenched jaw betraying his frustration. He glanced up, the despair in his eyes hinting that he already knew about the expos. "We need to talk," he began, but Veronica held up a hand. "I know everything," she said quietly. "I read the article. Is it true that your finances are on the brink and you've been funneling money to Isabella?" James tensed. "The article is blown out of proportion. Yes, I've made investments that didn't pan out, and yes, I was trying to keep it under control. Isabella offered connections, a network to recoup my losses quickly." Veronica felt a lump form in her throat. "And you jeopardized our marriage for that. And now the world knows." She noticed James's eyes glisten, but she couldn't tell if it was remorse or fear of losing everything. "I never intended for it to go public like this," he said, voice trembling. "I was trying to protect you." Her laugh was hollow. "Protect me? You lied to me, betrayed me, and now the scandal is a headline story. Where's the protection in that?" James tried to speak, but the words failed him. In the silence that followed, it became clear to Veronica that their relationship might be irreparably damaged. Without warning, a wave of dizziness swept over her. She placed a hand on the wall for support. James rushed forward, concern etched on his face. "Veronica, are you okay?" She closed her eyes, willing herself to stay upright. "I'm fine," she muttered, though her body trembled. The emotional toll, combined with pregnancy fatigue, was taking its price. As she steadied herself, she realized something. No matter how complicated James's business affairs were, her foremost duty was to protect herself and the baby. She could not afford to be dragged into his downward spiral any longer. If the only solution was to break free, then that's what she had to do, no matter how much it shattered her heart. The following morning, Veronica's resolve hardened like steel. She was done listening to apologies and half-truths. Her baby's well-being was paramount, and the storm of James's scandal loomed, threatening to drag her under. She dialed Marcia Holland's office and said two words that felt both liberating and terrifying: "I'm ready." That afternoon, she arrived at Marcia's office, clutching a folder of evidence, financial records, photos, text messages, and the infamous expos. Marcia scanned the documents with practiced efficiency, her expression neutral but focused. "We have a strong case here, Veronica. Infidelity is often difficult to prove without direct admission, but these photos and receipts are compelling. Plus, the financial irregularities might work in our favor in terms of alimony." Veronica nodded, trying to quell the tremor in her hands. She had to do this, no matter how painful. "I want to ensure my child's future is secured. I don't trust James to handle his finances responsibly anymore, especially with these potential lawsuits." Marcia offered a reassuring nod. We'll request full financial disclosure and possibly even a court-appointed accountant. If James has hidden assets, they'll be uncovered. She then explained the process, filing the petition for divorce, serving James with papers, and potentially negotiating a settlement. Veronica listened, feeling equal parts numb and determined. Once the meeting concluded, Veronica stepped onto the sidewalk. The city's hustle and bustle enveloped her, but she felt oddly disconnected. She remembered how excited she was when she first married James, how they danced on that grand marble floor of the Waldorf Astoria for their wedding reception. Now, she was filing for divorce with a child on the way, all because of deceit, greed, and betrayal. She pulled out her phone to text Lisa, "It's done. I'm filing." Her friend's response came quickly, "I'm proud of you. You deserve better." Veronica felt her eyes mist over. Despite her heartbreak, she knew she was making the only choice that made sense. That evening, she stayed with Lisa, not wanting to endure James's presence in the same house. She cradled her growing belly, speaking softly to the child within. "You'll be okay," she whispered, tears slipping down her face. "I promise I'll give you everything you need, even if I have to do it on my own." While at Lisa's, Veronica received a series of missed calls from James, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. Eventually, he texted her in a panic, "Veronica, what's going on? Come home. I'm worried." She stared at the message, a maelstrom of emotions welling inside her. She typed a curt reply, "I'll be home to pick up some things tomorrow. We'll talk then." The next morning, Veronica arrived at the house with Lisa by her side. The place felt different, as if an invisible veil of sorrow now draped over every piece of furniture. James was waiting in the living room, disheveled, his tie askew. When he saw Lisa, he scowled, not even trying to hide his animosity. "Can we talk in private?" he said, voice hoarse. Veronica shook her head. "Whatever you need to say, you can say it now," she replied, crossing her arms. Lisa stood resolute, arms folded as well, ready to back up her friend if needed. James inhaled deeply. "I got served," he said, holding up the divorce papers. "Is this really how you want to handle this? We can work through it. I can fix things." He looked desperate, like a man fighting to cling to whatever remnants of his life were left. Veronica maintained her calm facade. "I gave you chances to come clean. You had months, maybe even years, to end things with Isabella, to be honest with me about your finances. You didn't. I'm done. My baby's well-being comes first." She felt a pang in her chest, but she stood firm. James's eyes flicked between Veronica and Lisa, settling on Veronica with a pleading gaze. "You're making a mistake, Veronica. We built a life together. Are you really going to throw it away?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "You threw it away the moment you betrayed me. Don't put this on me." With that, she marched upstairs to gather her clothes, personal items, and anything else she would need for the foreseeable future. Lisa helped her pack, silent tears streaming down both their faces. In Veronica's mind, the memories of happier times kept surfacing: Sunday brunches, romantic vacations. The day they found out she was pregnant, and James lifted her in joy. They felt like scenes from another lifetime. Returning downstairs, she placed a hand protectively over her belly and faced James one last time. "I'll be staying with Lisa," she said softly. "If you want to communicate, do it through my lawyer." James's expression was a cocktail of anger, fear, and regret. He opened his mouth but said nothing, perhaps realizing words would no longer suffice. With that, Veronica walked out, each step heavier than the last. She closed the door behind her, tears now streaming freely. Lisa guided her to the car and drove them away. It was done. The marriage was over, and a new, uncertain chapter had begun. Settling into Lisa's guest bedroom, Veronica felt a profound sense of loss. The bed was smaller, the dresser older, and the walls painted a cheery pale yellow, an ironic contrast to her somber mood. Yet something about the quaintness soothed her frayed nerves. She was away from the swirling chaos of James's mansion and the painful reminders of betrayal. In the days that followed, she busied herself with practical matters. She called her obstetrician to update her contact information. She researched childbirth classes near Lisa's neighborhood. She immersed herself in reading about single parenting, devouring advice columns and vlogs from women who had navigated similar journeys. It was both terrifying and empowering. For the first time in months, she felt a semblance of control over her life. Marcia kept her informed on the divorce proceedings. James's legal team tried to negotiate a settlement that would minimize the scandal, but Marcia was relentless. "We won't settle for scraps," she said firmly. "You have a right to spousal support, child support, and a fair share of the marital assets, especially given his misconduct." Veronica, though uneasy about the looming courtroom battles, trusted Marcia's expertise. Media scrutiny remained a thorn in her side. Paparazzi lurked near James's mansion, snapping pictures of him leaving in his Bentley or heading to high-end legal offices downtown. Once in a while, a tabloid would publish a snippet about the millionaire's jilted wife, implying Veronica was set to walk away with a massive payout. She ignored the gossip and stayed under the radar, determined not to feed the rumor mill. One afternoon, as Veronica was scrolling through emails, she saw one that made her heart pause. The sender, anonymous. The subject, a warning. Hesitating, she clicked it open. The message read, "He's desperate. He'll do anything to salvage his reputation. Be careful." Attached were several scanned documents detailing questionable business agreements between James and high-level investors. Names she recognized, like corporate giant Xenon Corporation, appeared repeatedly. Her gut twisted. Was someone on the inside feeding her ammunition against James? She forwarded the email to Marcia, adding a note, "No idea who's sending these, but it might be useful." Veronica's hand trembled slightly as she hit send. Every day brought fresh revelations of James's entanglements. She worried that the deeper this went, the more her child's future would be jeopardized by the fallout. That evening, Lisa returned from work to find Veronica in the living room, eyes glued to her phone. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Lisa remarked, setting her purse down. Veronica gave a dry laugh. "Maybe I have." Another anonymous tip, more documents. It's like I'm in some twisted spy thriller. Lisa slid onto the couch beside her friend. "Well, you're not alone in this. I mean, come on. You've got a lawyer, me, and apparently some secret informant who wants to help you bring down James. That's one bizarre support system, but it's something." Veronica nodded, her heart brimming with gratitude. "Thank you, Lisa, for everything. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you offered me a guest room." Lisa waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be silly. We're practically sisters, remember? This is what we do, we show up for each other." A few days later, Marcia called with a sense of urgency. "We need to meet. I've reviewed the documents you sent. They could be a game changer." Veronica felt a mix of excitement and dread. She arranged a meeting for the next morning. Sitting in Marcia's office once more, Veronica listened intently as the attorney explained how the newly surfaced agreements hinted at fraud. If James is implicated in business fraud, it changes the negotiation dynamics. He'll be more motivated to settle quickly and on more favorable terms for you to avoid a prolonged public scandal. Veronica swallowed, recalling James's desperation to keep his empire intact. "So he might actually give me what I need to protect the baby, in exchange for silence?" she asked quietly. Marcia nodded. "It's possible. We can negotiate a confidentiality clause, but that also means if the fraud is real, there's a moral question here. Do we let him get away with it?" The moral dilemma weighed heavily on Veronica. She despised James for his betrayal, but also remembered the man who once seemed so earnest and loving. Did she want to destroy him in court, or simply secure a future for her child and move on? That night, She lay awake on the small guest bed, hand resting on her belly, feeling the soft movements of the baby. She whispered into the dark, "I'm doing this for you." Tears welled as she considered the life she wanted to create, free from deception, full of love and safety. She realized that the line between justice and vengeance could be blurred when heartbreak and betrayal were involved. The next day, she would meet with Marcia again to finalize their strategy. Whether James would fight back or fold under the weight of his secrets was anyone's guess. But one thing was certain: Veronica wouldn't be the silent victim in this story. She had found her voice, and she was determined to use it to protect her child and reclaim her life, no matter the cost. A week later, Veronica found herself face to face with James for the first time since moving out. The meeting was held in a sleek conference room at Marcia's firm, a neutral space designed to quell emotional outbursts. On one side of the table sat Veronica and Marcia. On the other side, James and his attorney, a stern man named Clifford Reyes, known for brokering deals that minimized public damage for high-profile clients. Veronica noticed James looked more haggard than ever. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and a weariness clung to him like a heavy coat. Her resolve softened for a brief moment as memories of happier times washed over her. Then she reminded herself why she was there. Marcia began the proceedings with a clear, calm voice. "We're here to negotiate a settlement that ensures Miss S. Halston and her child receive adequate financial support and property division, and also addresses issues of custody once the child is born." Clifford Reyes leaned forward. "My client wishes to expedite these proceedings for the sake of privacy and efficiency. He's prepared to offer a sizable monthly alimony, child support, and a portion of the estate." James remained silent, eyes on the polished surface of the table. Marcia looked over a document Reyes slid across the table. As she read, her brows knitted. "This is less than half of what Mr. Halston is capable of providing, based on the financial records we have," she said, her tone icy. Clifford pressed his lips together. "We believe it's more than generous, given the current climate." A tension crackled in the air, but Veronica held her composure, remembering the baby's future depended on this. Marcia reached into her folder and extracted the newly discovered documents, laying them in front of Clifford and James. "Let's discuss the current climate, shall we?" Her voice resonated in the silent room. "These documents suggest potential fraud in Mr. Halston's business dealings. If we go to court, it could become a matter of public record." James visibly stiffened. Clifford's expression darkened as he realized the gravity of what was being presented. "Are you threatening us?" Clifford asked, his voice low, bristling with hostility. Marcia remained unflappable. "We're merely stating that if this goes to litigation, everything becomes part of the public case file. The press is already circling. It's in everyone's best interest to settle this privately, ensuring Veronica and her child receive fair terms." Silence fell. James finally spoke, his voice rough. "What do you want, Veronica?" He looked at her, searching her face. She met his gaze with both sadness and determination. "I want security for our child, and I want the means to start over, free from your scandals and lies." James exhaled slowly, pressing his fingertips to his temples. "Fine, let's work out a new figure," he said, nodding to Clifford, who began scribbling on a notepad. After hours of back-and-forth discussion, raised voices, and tense pauses, they arrived at an agreement that Marcia deemed acceptable: a sizable lump sum, ongoing monthly support, half the proceeds from the sale of their marital home, and a trust fund set up for the baby. Custody specifics would be determined after the child's birth, with Veronica having primary custody and James maintaining visitation rights provided. He kept his personal affairs in order. Before signing, Veronica looked at James one last time. "Why did it have to come to this?" she asked quietly. He lowered his head, a mixture of regret and stubborn pride shaping his features. I made mistakes, he conceded. Big ones. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was too caught up in my own mess to see what I was doing to us. She blinked back, tears, nodding. There was nothing left to say. When the final agreement was set, both parties signed. It felt surreal, an unceremonious end to what was once a grand love story. James left with Clifford, shoulders sagging. Veronica watched him go, her heart a jumble of relief, sorrow, and lingering anger. Marcia placed a reassuring hand on Veronica's shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said gently. Veronica nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She had secured a future for her child, albeit one built on the ashes of a broken marriage. It was an emotional victory, bittersweet and painful. In the days that followed, media outlets released stories speculating about the settlement, but no one had the exact details, thanks to strict confidentiality clauses. The gossip cycle moved on to fresher scandals, leaving Veronica in relative peace. She remained at Lisa's for the time being, focusing on her pregnancy and preparing for the arrival of the baby. Despite the heartbreak, she found small moments of joy. She decorated a corner of Lisa's guest room with a crib and soft plush toys. She read books on newborn care and found herself smiling at the fluttery kicks in her belly, a reminder that life continued to blossom even in the darkest of times. As the 8th month of pregnancy rolled around, Veronica began to see a path forward. She had the financial stability to rent a place of her own. She even considered returning to her old job in a marketing firm once the baby was a few months old. The heartbreak was still there, but she was learning to coexist with it, to let it fuel her determination rather than define her. One late evening, while sorting through baby clothes, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello," she said softly. A familiar voice replied. "Veronica, it's me, James." Her grip tightened on the phone. She hadn't spoken to him since the settlement. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone guarded. He sighed audibly. "I just wanted to check on you. And the baby." She closed her eyes, emotions stirring. "We're fine," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. James paused. "I'm glad. I'll respect the boundaries you set. But I want you to know if you ever need anything, I'm here." Veronica felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Take care of yourself, James," she whispered, ending the call. The pain was still fresh, but she realized she was no longer drowning in it. She would keep moving forward, one step at a time, carrying hope for a future where she and her child could thrive without the burden of betrayal. A few weeks later, Veronica's world changed in a single night. She woke in the early hours to a sharp, insistent pain. At first, she thought it was another wave of stress-induced discomfort, but then she realized her contractions had started. Heart pounding, she nudged Lisa awake. "I think the baby's coming," she said, breathless with a mixture of fear and excitement. Lisa leaped into action, helping Veronica gather her hospital bag and navigate down the stairs. The city lights blurred through the car window as they raced to the hospital. Throughout the drive, Veronica focused on controlling her breathing, sweat beading on her forehead. She clutched Lisa's hand, grateful she wasn't alone. In the bustling maternity ward, nurses escorted Veronica to a private room. The contractions came closer together, each wave more intense than the last. Hours blurred as she labored, the pain and adrenaline weaving a tapestry of sensations. She vaguely registered the beeping monitors and hushed voices of nurses offering comfort. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor announced it was time. With Lisa by her side, Veronica pushed with every ounce of strength she had, tears mixing with perspiration. And then, in one miraculous moment, a cry rang through the room. The baby, a boy, entered the world, pink and wailing, exhausted and overwhelmed. Veronica sagged back against the pillows, tears of joy coursing down her cheeks. "He's perfect," she whispered, cradling the tiny, wriggling infant in her arms. Lisa leaned over, tears in her own eyes. "He's so beautiful," she said softly, brushing a gentle finger over the baby's cheek. Veronica's heart felt as though it might burst with love and gratitude. For that moment, the heartbreak, betrayal, and legal battles faded into the background. A day later, as Veronica rested in the hospital bed, a knock sounded at the door. She glanced up to see James standing there hesitantly, clutching a bouquet of pale roses. Her stomach fluttered, unsure how to feel. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. Veronica swallowed, looking down at her sleeping son. She gave a small nod. James approached, his steps cautious. His eyes instantly found the baby, and his expression softened with awe. He's ours," he said, voice quavering. Veronica watched him, remembering the complicated path that brought them here. "Yes," she replied, her tone subdued. For a few minutes, they spoke in hushed voices. James asked how the labor went, if Veronica was in pain, if the baby was healthy. She answered politely, but with distance. He asked if he could hold his son, and she agreed. The moment James held the tiny bundle, tears formed in his eyes. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he murmured, though he didn't elaborate whether he meant here during the birth or here in their relationship. Veronica felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Watching James cradle their child was both tender and heartbreaking. "He's precious," James whispered, gently returning the baby to her arms. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. He cleared his throat, placing the roses on the small table. "I wanted to see if you need anything. If not, I'll go." "I understand." He trailed off, looking at her with a mixture of longing and resignation. Veronica searched his face, wondering if he truly grasped the magnitude of what he had lost. She appreciated that he came, but the scars ran deep. "We're fine," she said quietly, stroking the baby's soft hair. "Thank you for coming." Her words were calm, yet they held a firm boundary. James swallowed, nodding. "I'll keep in touch," he said, standing awkwardly for a moment before exiting the room. Lisa, who had stepped out to give them privacy, returned a few minutes later. "Are you okay?" she asked, sitting beside the bed. Veronica took a shaky breath and nodded. "It was hard seeing him, but I wanted him to meet his son." She gazed down at the sleeping infant. "I want my child to have a father in his life, but I can't forget what James did." Lisa gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder. "One day at a time. For now, just focus on this beautiful baby." Veronica managed a small smile. She had survived the storm, birthed a life, and secured a future for both of them. The path ahead was uncertain, but she felt an ember of strength within her. She had walked through betrayal and heartbreak, and she had come out on the other side with a precious gift, her son. Over the next few days, Veronica and her baby named Ethan settled into a routine at Lisa's apartment. Diaper changes, feedings, and lullabies consumed her days. She felt an all-encompassing love she never knew was possible. Whenever James called, she gave him brief updates. He sent gifts and offered financial help beyond their settlement agreement, but Veronica remained guarded. She wanted to maintain their co-parenting relationship, yet keep emotional distance to protect herself. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan grew, and Veronica discovered a well of resilience she hadn't realized she possessed. She found a new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom near a lovely park, where she and Ethan could start fresh. Lisa helped her decorate, painting the nursery walls in soothing colors and hanging whimsical artwork. Life was far from perfect, but it was hers to shape now. She had learned that trust, once shattered, might never fully mend, yet hope could still blossom in unexpected ways. And so, with a quiet determination, Veronica Halston embraced her new life, mother, survivor, and the architect of her own destiny. 6 months after Ethan's birth, the tumultuous saga that once consumed Veronica's life had softened into a distant hum. She had found a modest yet comfortable space, perched on a quiet street. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, illuminating the living room where baby toys and soft blankets created a cozy haven. She returned to part-time work at a marketing agency, grateful that Lisa's references and her solid track record made re-entry smoother than expected. Juggling single motherhood and professional responsibilities was challenging, but every time she returned home to Ethan's bright smile, fatigue melted away. James, for his part, made efforts to be in Ethan's life. He visited once a week, always scheduled and always mindful of Veronica's boundaries. He never crossed the line into personal territory, focusing solely on bonding with his son. Sometimes, after he left, Veronica caught herself wondering if he regretted losing their family unit. But she didn't dwell on it. The hole he'd torn in her heart had slowly scarred over. One crisp morning, she was sorting laundry when her phone buzzed. The screen displayed a notification for a breaking news article. James Halston's real estate empire files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. She froze, the headline stark and jarring. Her heart pounded. Curiosity gnawed at her, so she opened the article. It detailed how James's once mighty empire had collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and bad investments. Isabella Hughes was mentioned, albeit briefly, in relation to questionable offshore accounts. Veronica's chest constricted. She felt a pang of sadness for the man James used to be, but also relief that she had already secured financial independence through the divorce settlement. She placed her phone down, exhaling. This news might have devastated her if she was still financially tied to James. But now, thanks to Marcia's ironclad legal strategy, she and Ethan were protected. A sense of gratitude and calm filled her. Later that day, as she fed Ethan mashed carrots, James called. She considered letting it go to voicemail, but decided to pick up. "Hi, James," she said, her tone measured. He sounded different, worn and subdued. "Veronica, I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to give you a heads up. You might see some news about my bankruptcy. I didn't want you to worry." She glanced at her little boy, who gurgled happily, unaware of the tumult in the adult world. "I saw the article." "I'm sorry it's come to this," she replied, genuinely empathizing despite everything. James sighed. "Yeah. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. I appreciate your concern." She knew he was likely under immense stress. Perhaps in another life she would have rushed to comfort him. But too much had happened. "We're okay," she reassured him. "Ethan and I are fine." Silence stretched on the line. "That's good," he murmured. "I'm glad." She could hear the longing in his voice, but she steeled herself. After a moment, he said his goodbyes, and the call ended. Time marched forward. Veronica poured her energy into raising Ethan, occasionally meeting with other new mothers for playdates. She rediscovered joys she'd forgotten, simple walks in the park, bedtime stories, the sweet scent of a baby drifting off to sleep. Every milestone Ethan reached reminded her that life, no matter how battered, could still blossom into something bright. One evening, Lisa invited Veronica to a small gathering at a local gallery showcasing modern art. It was the first time Veronica attended a social event without feeling overshadowed by James's reputation or the scandal. She slipped into a simple black dress, feeling a timid thrill at the prospect of a normal night out. Lisa teased her, saying, "You're glowing, Mama." At the gallery, she struck up a conversation with a friendly architect named Daniel Crawford. They talked about art, travel, and the best pizza spots in Chicago. For the first time since her marriage collapsed, Veronica felt a flicker of curiosity about someone new. She laughed at his jokes, discovered they shared an appreciation for jazz, and found a surprising ease in opening up about her life minus the sordid details of her past. When they parted ways, he offered his business card. "If you ever want to chat more about art or, grab a coffee, let me know," he said with a disarming smile. Veronica returned the smile, warmth creeping into her cheeks. "I might just do that," she replied. On the drive home, she felt a surge of hope. She wasn't ready to dive headfirst into a relationship, but she realized she was no longer barricaded by heartbreak. She had a son who lit up her world, friends who had her back, and a future that was hers to shape. If she chose to share that future with someone new, it would be on her terms, guided by lessons learned from a painful past. That night, as she tucked Ethan into his crib, she placed a gentle kiss on his forehead. A sense of peace stole over her. She walked to the window and looked out at the city lights, remembering all the drama that had once felt insurmountable. She had walked through fire, discovering her millionaire husband's affair, facing public scandal, filing for divorce while pregnant, and emerged with her heart still beating and her spirit unbroken. In the stillness of that moment, she understood that sometimes the hardest endings pave the way for the most promising beginnings. And she was more than ready to embrace whatever came next. Life has a way of throwing unimaginable twists our way, but Veronica's journey proves that heartbreak need not define our destiny. She braved betrayal and public scandal while protecting the most precious gift growing inside her. By choosing to file for divorce and stand her ground, she secured a new beginning for herself and baby. Ethan, a life built on hard-won independence, resilience, and hope. As we leave Veronica's story behind, remember that challenges can break us only if we let them. When we stay true to our values and refuse to settle for deception, even the hardest storms will eventually pass. If you found inspiration in this roller coaster tale of love, betrayal, and redemption, please hit that like button, share this video with friends, and subscribe to our channel. There's always a glimmer of hope on the horizon sometimes. You just have to create it for yourself.